Hey, before I kick off the podcast, I just want to shout out Next Door Clothing. Next Door, a clothing brand based out of Bondi in Sydney. They're making really nice jeans and shirts and hats. So go and check out their full range at nextdoorsydney.com. They're also artists, so you can go and check out a range of art. They put on rad parties, and I love what they're doing. So nextdoorsydney.com for the full range.
I'm having a good time.
You are?
Yeah.
I can tell.
We are rolling too.
Terrible happy talks. Terrible happy talks. Terrible happy talks. Terrible happy talks.
Like along, like the fucking...
Along. Like the roofing.
Like the roofing. Along means reed, apparently. Just reed. Doesn't mean...
Like it's a reed.
Because it is the right?
And then they use it as a roof.
Yeah.
Roofing material.
Yeah.
Cool, bro.
Reeds.
I often wonder how it doesn't just inflame and go on fire.
It does.
It does?
Yeah, if it's dry, it will.
Oh, dude.
I think, yeah, you're right. It's pretty amazing it doesn't, but...
You know how we're just on the back of that big drought?
Mm-hmm.
I was seriously waiting for some shit to burn, but nothing did.
For sure, man. Especially because people burn stuff all the time.
I know.
You'd think it's...
And then the roofs are made out of along.
Mm-hmm. Imagine just a root fire. Like, dude, if they make a fire in the wrong spot and that thing spreads, it's game over.
So much unregulated fire making.
It's like when the first year when I got here, when the volcano was going off, that was the thing, was if wind blows and that ash lands, that whole place is gone.
Dude,
it's just
gone.
It's like a tinderbox. Yeah.
Call me crazy. That's what I was thinking. Like, no one really talks about it. I'm like, all right.
Yeah.
Cool, I'll just go with the flow.
All right.
I better get a fire extinguisher and I'll go with the flow. All right, and we're rolling. Today's guest is Alain Joubert. Alain is a 33-year-old South African-Canadian artist, international educator, and world traveller. Alain graduated from York University, Toronto with a Bachelor degree in Fine Arts and Education. He now continues to translate his passion by working as a teacher at a highly recognised sustainability-focused school in Bali. Prior to moving to Bali, Alain founded the Chiniguichi Outpost. Yes, yeah. I'm getting the thumbs up. The Chiniguichi Outpost Sustainable Eco Lodge in Ontario, Canada. Alain is a deep thinker whose main form of artistic expression is painting and drawing, skills that he willingly assists in developing in his students. In my opinion, Alain possesses views on our world that are honest and sometimes uncomfortable to hear. I was drawn to him immediately. Today, Alain is with me to share his journey, experiences, challenges, and hopes for the future. Alain Joubert, welcome.
Hey.
Dude, I've got to say, man, I feel so weird calling you Alain or Alan.
Of course.
In Australia, it's Alan, Alan, and then we'd abbreviate that straight to Al.
Yeah, that's it. Well, it's strange for me to hear it because nobody calls me that. Only really my immediate family.
Why was I trying to call you that the whole time? I should have just
it's fine.
Stuck with Joubert.
Because on those official documents, first name, it's like what we go to.
Yeah, and I mean, it's the name your parents gave you.
Yeah. And
like being a parent myself, a fair bit of thought goes into it, and it's a big decision for parents, and I kind of want to honour that when I have a guest on the show, that they had to make a decision around a human being's name for the rest of their life.
Yeah.
But let's just abbreviate the shit out of it every other time.
Yeah. Al.
Big Al. But I like saying your name Joubert, like it just feels so French.
Yeah, and it's always good to get those different versions, Joubert and Joubert.
Did it ever get abbreviated to just Bert?
No, actually, funny you say that, because for the first time, one of the students said that. They were like, "Can we call you Peck Bert?" It's like, it's funny, no one has ever said that. So I said, yeah, sure, because you get an A for creativity. Yeah, no, just Juju or Jubies.
I like Juju.
Yeah, it's a good one. Jelly bean once. I had jelly bean once. Those are little kids, though. It
works. So there's no French in your history or your background?
There is. Yeah, there is. So I guess when you look at, Europeans in South Africa, obviously there's a rich history of people coming over. So my lineage is a big mishmash of German, Dutch, Irish, French, English. There's a couple others in there, but the French is definitely there. It was the Huguenots that came over in the 1800s. I actually was curious once, and I did try to trace back if there was any, sort of when you do those like family tree kind of explorations, because there's a prominent general that was in the Boer War whose name was Joubert, and there's a Joubert Street in Johannesburg.
Is there?
And yeah, and I'd asked my family about it, and they sort of said, well, we sort of had thought about that maybe there was some link there. There probably is, but I don't know if anyone really looked into it as much. And I was curious, and I remember looking at trying to find photos of what this Joubert looked like. And I kid you not, man, there's a photo of him that I compared to a photo of my grandfather, my dad's dad, because that's obviously the Joubert side. And they look the same. My grandfather and this guy have the same beard, the same eyes, they look the same. So I was like, come on, that's gotta be, that's gotta be it. So yeah, there is French, but yeah, whenever people ask me, oh, where are you from? Your name's very French. I always have to explain, no, I was born in South Africa, but lived in Canada, especially when I was living in Montreal. When I was living in, Quebec, of course, everyone's going to assume you're a French Canadian. And I'm like, well, it's even more confusing. I'm not even,
Can you maybe give us an insight as to what Quebec's like? I've always found it very interesting because it's a very French place in the middle of Canada. Mm-hmm. So, is there a real contrast there between European and sort of North American? Yeah,
I guess in a sense, yeah. Quebec's an interesting place. It's like one. I don't know if you want to call it a criticism, but one thing I think I hear a lot of people say about North America is that there doesn't seem to be a distinct sort of culture that's North American, like that really like a single thing that stands out, right? I could also beg to argue that that's not entirely true because it depends where you go, but some sort of a unifying. But Quebec as this little pocket in the middle of Canada like that, you do definitely feel that there is some sort of a unifying thing there. And also, I guess it depends what generation you talk to, but yeah, it's really nice, man. I mean, my experience in Quebec is like, people are super friendly. The food's awesome. There's like beautiful places to go to and see. I mean, a lot like the rest of Canada, it's just like, wilderness, everything north, and then everything along the borders are kind of more populated, but beautiful cities, like always stuff to do. There's festivals all the time and food. There's just wine flowing. Like people, the language obviously is something that unifies people there. I guess this is one thing that I think stands out that I noticed, at least in Quebec from other parts of Canada, is that people seem to be more unified. And from talking to people, what I gather is that there's it's an identity thing, right? I mean, if you look at the history of the country where the British and the French were trying to claim the land and there's war and the French ended up losing, there's animosity, obviously. Like when you talk to some of those older generations, you'll see that there's a bit of like, you Anglophone. And like a place I used to work at, one of the laws in Quebec is like, if you, for example, work somewhere, you should be greeting guests and clients in French. Gotcha. So even if you don't speak fluent French, you should at least greet people or answer the phone. Yeah. Put in effort, speak French, like signage, outside of shops as well. Like it has to be in French first and then English. So anyway, the one day I got in trouble at work because je parle pas, je comprends pas, but I answer the phone in French. It was actually in person. This person came in, and older lady, and I said hello and everything in French, and I explained that I couldn't speak great French and that I might at some point have to switch to English. And she got so angry. She called the manager, who was a good friend of mine. My boss was my buddy, and she's just like, I need to talk to your manager. And she just went into him. She's like, how could you hire somebody that doesn't speak French first language? It's a disgrace. And he was like, whoa, he's trying. Did he say hi in French? She's like, yeah, but still. And I kind of just stood there. I was like, whoa. But, I get it because I do get why. Like there's still tension in, I think, the older generation. And also Quebec's tried to separate a few times from Canada, right? Like they have tried. And like I do get it from talking to different people, but the younger generations tend to not really care about that as much.
War trauma.
Yeah.
War trauma goes through generation after generation. I think we forget that.
No.
Like if your grandparents were in a war, it's kind of like they pass on their war trauma through their DNA, and it's a real pain, I think we underestimate it a lot. I see it a lot in Australia with our Australian Indigenous people and the Aboriginals. they're often told to, move on and just let the past go.
Mm-hmm.
And then their children and their children's children that are coming through are still actually, carrying that pain and holding on to resentment from the atrocities that were committed to their,
Mm-hmm.
grandparents or their great-grandparents. And we sort of expect them to go, oh, well,
Mm-hmm.
that happened, 50, 100 years ago. It's not a long time.
No. And war affects everything. So it's not just like okay, the war's over, everyone move on. I mean, entire cultures are changed or wiped out, and the psychic effects. Like, I mean, it affects everything. So that's not a surprise. Yeah.
Yeah. So, like, in Quebec, you got in trouble for not speaking French.
There was one case. People generally just laughed and they were like, "Oh, okay, good." And then to be honest, it's definitely
so
not the image of
weird.
Quebec that I want to paint, because it's not really what it's like. It was occasionally it would happen.
But it's definitely like a little piece of Europe.
Yeah.
Yeah, like you were saying, food and wine and
it feels European. Yeah. You're still. I mean.
Architecture?
You go to, I was going to say, like, you go to Europe and you'll see the history is like so blatantly in front of you, because there's old buildings and boulevards and little cobbled roads and things. It doesn't have that per se. I mean, there is an area in Montreal, old Montreal, that has sort of still some cobbled roads, and you can see obviously the older buildings, the older architecture, but it'll never obviously be the same as Europe. Just Europe has long history. So you still feel like you're still in North America, but there tends to the vibe, I think, for me is that I noticed that there was just something that just unified people there, like whether it be them cheering for the Montreal Canadiens, like the hockey team, or it was the fact that they all spoke the same language, or I don't know, but it just more so than other places I've seen in Canada. People just seem to be
like
a bit
solidarity.
more, a little bit more,
That's right.
and friendly, like super friendly.
That's right.
No,
so which part of Joburg? Which part of South Africa? Is it Johannesburg, Joburg?
That I'm from. Yeah, Joburg. Yeah.
Cool, man. What's that like as a city? I've heard it's gnarly. Like they have like crazy gun crime. And
it's pretty crazy.
Is it as full on as people say, or is it just media?
No, it is.
Blowing it up?
Probably a mix of both. The media tends to blow everything up. No, it's bad. I'm not gonna. No. Yeah, I mean, the thing is, like any city that's has a reputation for violence and things like that, you're obviously going to find little safe pockets, and you can still function. And like I know there's still people I know that live there. My family left, but my extended family's all stayed in South Africa. I don't think anyone currently of my family lived in Joburg anymore. They're sort of more spread out, like Cape Town and Pretoria and different places, but. It's pretty bad, man. I mean, look, to be honest, like one of the main reasons my family left was just exposure over and over again to just horrible things happening. Like my neighbor was shot when I was a kid. I was outside playing in the garden, and gunshots went off, and I thought it was fireworks. And I remember my mom like screaming, like, come inside. And we like locked all the doors and put the curtains down.
Robbery gone wrong or something?
Yeah. Yeah, it turned out it was a guy. It was really sad, actually. It was a guy that he owned a restaurant, I don't know, probably a kilometer up the road. And we know this because my dad spoke to the police for a bit afterwards. He owned a restaurant, and every Thursday he would come home, and he used to bring this briefcase or two briefcases, something like this, home. So the thing is, whoever did it probably was watching him and sort of saw that there was this routine. And he came home this day, and it was two guys, AK-47s. They were sitting on our wall of our house, and as soon as he pulled in the driveway, got out, shot him, shot his brother. No. Brother got shot. He survived. The brother survived, but the owner of the restaurant, he was killed. And the briefcase didn't have anything in it. It was like paperwork. It wasn't money. It wasn't like, it's not like the movies where the guy comes in, So it was for nothing, and that was it. But the thing is, like, and to give you an idea of what Joburg's like, was that in the newspaper? No, it was like a little thing in an obituary.
Because it's just a common occurrence.
It's just common. This stuff happens all the time.
Oh man.
Yeah. When we left in '94, it was the murder capital of the world.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I actually have heard that stat.
Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah.
So you effectively were fleeing.
Yeah.
From violence.
Yeah. I mean, my parents, had 4 kids, and they were trying to think ahead and just see what kind of opportunities are going to be here. And
which number are you?
I'm the last. I'm the baby.
You're the baby.
Yeah, I'm the
baby.
baby.
Joubert.
Yeah. That's it.
Baby Juju.
Never going to grow up.
Baby Jubes.
Baby Juvie.
That's right.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, their thing was, just thinking ahead. What kind of opportunity would there be for kids? Like my sister at the time wanted to be a doctor. You don't want to go to the hospitals there. Like, I mean, it's, and a big thing, and like obviously like the elephant in the room, like, looking at around that time too, the ending of apartheid was a big thing. And of course the country was going to change. And I think the thing for us, like, I feel like a lot, like, obviously I'm not speaking for all South Africans. I can't. But in my family, Mandela was awesome. We love Mandela. Everything he represented was amazing. And as an adult now, reflecting on being a kid growing up in a country that has such a long history of racism, and obviously a difficult topic to talk about, obviously, reflecting on it, man, it's like that place has so much potential, but it's going to take time. It's like you were saying with the war trauma. It's the same thing. It's going to take generations and generations and generations. And when you talk to younger South Africans, it doesn't matter what color your skin is, where you're from. Like, people want to connect. People want to move on. People want to join and make community. It takes time. That's the thing.
Time to heal.
Yeah. And it was difficult for my parents because we got a lot of flack from extended family, which makes sense because they felt like you guys are running away or sort of turning your back on us. And it was tough for them, and also they had to basically give up everything, right, in that sense. But we were lucky enough to be in a position that we could, because a lot of people who want to leave now can't. And I think the thing that my parents were graced with was a bit of that foresight, because it kind of could have gone either way. Like, no one really knew what was going to happen once things changed. And Mandela was awesome. Like, a lot of good things came out of that. But then if you look at the current state of the country, but just politics, man, right? It's like corruption. It's just corruption. Doesn't matter where you're from,
even if you're a good
what
person.
You believe. Yeah,
even
if
the
you're
good guys, like they probably get cornered into these positions.
Totally.
They have to succumb to it in certain ways.
And people get pushed to desperation. Like, when I go back and I see some of the things and you hear these stories of stuff that's happening, I'm like, I can't put myself in people's shoes, but I get it.
Yeah.
If I grew up, I don't know, if you grew up and your village was bombed somewhere and you're a refugee from some other country and you come over and you don't, it's like war trauma. People there, and then you've got nothing, and you see around you, okay, well, there's people that have things, and you're pushed to desperation. And I would probably do the exact same thing. Like, I feel like any human pushed to a limit.
Well, here's a question for you. Obviously, there's Mandela, but how do you feel about the country at the moment in terms of its desire to learn from the mistakes of the past? Too deep? No,
it's a good question. I think.
Do you think the desire is there by the general population and the government?
Government. I think it depends who you are in the government.
Governments.
Yeah, I don't know. It's hard to answer because the even the general population, it's hard to say, because people for such a long time have been just sort of pouring across that border from all sorts of other places. With everybody's like sort of, there's a bit of a rat race and that fight to survive, and there's a mix of people that really have and people that don't have. It's hard to say if as a unifying thing that people want to learn from the past. I mean, look, one simple answer is, if people do want to learn from the past, then South Africa needs to kind of look at what it's doing right now and see that, yes, okay, it's not apartheid, but there is still institutionalized racism that's happening. It is. It's it doesn't, and it's not even really a white and black thing anymore. It's just like everybody. It's so in some sense you might even say, okay, it's no longer racism. It's become, I don't know, socioeconomic or some other version of some dominator hierarchy. But it's definitely there. And I mean, there, in some sense, I could say, like a good example was, I know there was a friend of mine went there and they were saying, like, how come all the people working in the restaurant or sorry, how come all the people working in the restaurant are black and everybody who's being served is white? And they kind of saw it as though, oh, look, the Africans are still serving the white man. And it's like, no, it's not actually that. It's because a lot of those jobs, you can't get them if you're white.
Right.
But someone out there in the world is going to say, how dare you fucking say that?
Could that be classed as reverse discrimination? Yeah,
in a sense, and I'm not saying it's like that everywhere, obviously, right? But it does happen. And even, business owners will get sort of taxed into the ground, or like just holes to jump through. But the thing is, like, I don't even know if I really would go as far to say that it's like still an institutionalized racism, because it kind of seems like it doesn't matter really race is not really the thing anymore.
Yeah.
It's just everybody's kind of in it, you know? So it's hard to say. And also keep in mind, I haven't lived there in a long time. Like I've visited family, so I'm not really the best person to really have a deep political analysis of the place. But
I kind of, like when I start thinking about the things that you're talking about, my mind often goes to, oh God, it's just such a shit fight and nothing's ever going to change. But then I really like that saying, like, well, are you part of the problem or are you part of the solution? And like, and it's just whatever works for your conscience, like, and are you making conscious decisions? So I really, you know, I'd try to live and be the solution that I would like to see.
Yeah.
And when it comes to politics and stuff, I won't lie to you, I am so disillusioned and jaded. I can only speak for Australian politics, that I just don't follow it anymore. And I mean, we get a lot of American politics in our news media, and I just don't follow it. And then often I'll hear people having discussions about some outrageous thing that Donald Trump said or did, or what some fucking stupid thing the Australian Prime Minister did. And yeah, I don't miss knowing about that stuff. And I didn't realize hearing about it every day was actually harming me, you know, because it's just so backwards. So I just think, like, you do need to stay in touch with it, and I think it's something I need to work on. But I'm working on choosing the media that I consume, and we all have a choice over the media we consume, as opposed to the media that we're just often fed, you know. So there's my rant for the day.
Yeah. No, what's important. And what's interesting now, there's so much media. That's the thing, though. Now there's so much.
Do you think there's too much?
There's a lot. I mean, it's everywhere, way more than there used to be. Too much, I don't know if too much is a thing in that, but there's, I think the trick now, like you said before, right? It's like we were fed things to, okay, you only had access to certain media, right?
Yeah.
Now you have access to everything. But what is all that? Like, you want to do research, you go read something online. I mean, what is that research? Like, you've got to really look into it. And like,
if you Googled it,
you know,
research.
Yeah, it's research, right? Wikipedia has a citation. You know, and that's, I think, the trick. And I say that to my students a lot too. I'm like, you know, I think forget everything else you're learning. I'm like, one big thing you really should focus on is how to sift through all of this.
How to be analytical.
Yeah. Like media literacy. I remember media literacy as a kid.
And objective, you know? Or subjective?
Both. I mean, objective for facts, obviously, and subjective for formulating your opinion about things. But there's just so much stuff. I think that's the biggest thing. And you've got to be able to, like, how often do you hear people, you know, oh, I heard this is bad for you. I heard this is the new thing. You're like, well, based on what though, and where? Like, maybe, but I don't know. Look into it.
I'm going to call out our mutual friend Garrett. I fucking love that guy. You know, I love him. But then he watches something on Netflix called The Game Changers. He's like, Shannon, I don't know what to fucking believe, man. I'm losing my mind. And I'm just like, dude, like, because that documentary is about, you know, plant-based diet. He's like, you know, Arnold Schwarzenegger was on there telling me I should eat a plant-based diet. So funny. And I'm like, dude, like, do your research. And then, like, Joe Rogan got this awesome nutrition scientist called Chris Kresser on his show, who basically debunked the whole movie, you know.
I heard about this.
And I'm like, sent Garrett the link and went, do your research, homie.
Listen to this one podcast. Do your research.
Yeah. But then listen to this one podcast. But this is, again, I'm going to plug podcasts, because this guy, Chris Kresser, he does such thorough scientific research from a variety of sources. Like, he does all the hard work for you. And he stays so neutral and just presents the facts. Like, and they're the kind of people I'm looking for. Okay. And then if, like, I want to get off my ass and maybe research some of the things he's saying to see if he's not just feeding me some bullshit, I can do it.
Yeah.
So, like,
there you go.
And I'm finding, like, when you start, I don't know, like, and then I feel like then the right teachers come. I don't know. No,
that's it though. I think that is it though. You finding sources of information from people that have done the hard work, and the best is, like you said, when it's presented in a way that's just, hey, listen, this is what's been going on. This is what people are saying. These are some of the statistics on things. I'm not preaching anything, just presenting this. And I know that obviously you can present anything in a way that could lead people to believe something, but it's, you know what I mean. It's like sometimes you read those things or hear those things, you're like, holy cow, this person really has an agenda. But it's great when you find those sources that don't, because then at least, you, like you said, you can then sit back, digest it. If you want to look into it further, look into it.
That's good that you mentioned that, because then, like, yeah, there's misguided dispersion of information, and then there's also, then you have to look at it like, what is that person's agenda? What is their bias? Is there a bias?
Mm-hmm.
Why would there be a bias? Why would there be an agenda?
Mm-hmm.
And then in this world of like, you know, Instagram influencers and social media influencers,
Mm-hmm.
like, man, like, no wonder we're all so fucking stressed out. Think about it, man. Like, we've got so much shit. And I was talking to Greg Stock.
True.
Greg Stock, he was a guest a few episodes ago, and he's like, he believes that we don't understand what the term technology actually means.
Mm-hmm.
But he refers a lot to, he's anti-digital technology. And he feels like we need to get back to it, and he's very passionate about it, and he's doing a talk, like a TED-style talk, next week about...
the Spark event.
the Spark event in regards to the move away from digital technology in education of children. And I'm just like, yeah, man, like, I agree. And I actually, while I go off down this rabbit hole a little bit,
for it.
I now have been a teacher for 14, 15 years. I don't believe that a child can grasp concepts as deeply through looking at a screen as they can on a pen and out of a book and a pen and paper. And I know it sounds really obvious, but it sounds obvious, and it actually is obvious when you see it legitimately. I think for some reason those bright lights, I know they overstimulate. I just don't think they translate the information as well into their brains, so they're not learning as deeply. That's my opinion. Do you agree? Or?
Well, there's definitely something to the passive experience of just looking at that screen and reading or listening to something, and that's it, right? You're not really doing, I mean, obviously actively you're processing, but it's fairly passive. But that old school method of taking out a pen and paper and writing something down while listening, there are studies, I can't quote who or what, but have been studies that do show that if you combine like kinesthetic movement with a visual cue and auditory cue, and you combine those and link them, information does tend to process better, and your memory.
Kinesthetic view.
All three.
So
auditory, visual, and kinesthetic. So movement of some kind, or physical.
Which are different
so writing,
intelligences.
for example. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, okay.
So say like writing, right? Like let's say you're listening to an audiobook while reading it, or let's actually forget the audiobook. Say you're reading a book, but you read it out loud. So you're hearing yourself. You're then also doing the reading and you're writing. So you've got the visual, the auditory, and it's better than just staring at the iPad or not reading it out loud, and so there's something to that. I think so.
Yeah, I
mean, how many thousands of years were we scratching in the sand?
Exactly. And here's an example. Just last week I had a group of students, and I'd been getting them to do handwritten diaries about some work we're doing, and I was just going through their work, and we're talking students aging from the age range of like 15 to 18, and I'm sorry, like most of them, their handwriting was read it. It was
legible,
it wasn't legible. Like, and I was like, no way. Like, are we losing the lost art and the skill of handwriting? Scribing. Can we scribe anymore?
Scribe, yeah.
And so there's something to think about. We're actually depleting a skill.
Yeah, absolutely. As a visual artist, there's the other level of that where I'm like, if people don't know how to write things, then maybe they're losing the ability to draw things.
What a great transition.
Just hand-eye coordination, with a pencil. Like if that's dying, but yeah, it's true. I've seen that too with some of my students. I look at their handwriting and I think like, okay, I understand if there's, stuff going on, but it seems like, it does seem to be a dying art.
A dying skill.
In a sense, yeah.
So like at what stage in your life did you really find yourself drawn, no pun intended, drawn to art?
Drawn. So this sounds super cliche and kind of, as I say this, I'm going to be annoyed with myself saying it, but I don't know, man. I was kind of born into it. Like my parents, the way they sort of explained it growing up was by the age of 2, I was picking up crayons and pencils and drawing full faces, but like it's hard to explain this without actually seeing an image. And for the listeners out there, I'm not gloating. This is stuff they told me, and of course my parents are going to elaborate because they love me. They're going to make me sound like I'm the best. But yeah, I don't really know, man. My entry into that was, they said at the age of 2, I was drawing like, I'd obviously still scribble drawings, but things like, a round head with ears and like some kind of an indication of an ear, the inner working of the ear, and then eyes with pupils and eyelashes and teeth and lips, like just very rudimentary, obviously. But, and I remember when they told me this, I'm like, yeah, but who cares? Kids do that all the time. And they're like, no, you don't understand. Look at other 2-year-olds' drawings. Look at the average 2-year-old's drawings. And I was like, I don't know. Anyway, I don't know what they're talking about, but apparently they saw something in it and they were like, there's something with this kid. We got to foster this.
I see with my daughter. And then I look at it and go, am I biased? What's my agenda?
Yeah, there you go. Have you done your research?
And I look at her, she's like just about to turn 5, and I look at her drawings and I go, that's really epic.
Yeah.
But I don't know if it's just me being like happy dad.
Could be, man.
But
well, it's art too. It's subjective.
But what I do look at is that she enjoys herself while she's doing it.
Yeah,
so I'm definitely going to lead her down that path.
Yeah.
Now, while I've got you as an audience, I'm in an awkward position. All right. I've done 33 podcasts, and this is the third time this has happened in 33 podcasts. I need to go to the toilet. I need to take a piss.
Okay.
So there's two options here. Option A, I can press pause. Boring. Or option B, you can just keep talking.
Okay. Yeah, I'll keep. I can keep talking.
You got something to talk about? You got something to say?
Yeah, that's fine. Well, we're talking about art.
You're not allowed to talk shit about me when I'm gone.
No, don't worry. No.
Sure.
Yeah, well, I'll just go on to some art rant. That's fine.
I want to be in on the art rant.
Rant?
I love art.
Well, maybe actually, is it boring if I also need to go pee?
Right now?
Yeah.
Maybe wait till I get back.
Why? There's another bathroom. I can go. Okay, fine. I'll wait.
Press and pause.
All right. In there.
And we're back. Dude, how's your wee?
It was good. Yeah, it was good.
It's awkward.
Yeah, needed it.
Lucky we've got 2 toilets.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
So, bro, I kind of lost track of where we're up to a little bit.
We're talking about art. We were just talking about art.
Yeah, like...
when did I... Yeah, so I gave you the cliche, like, when I was a kid, no. But...
Yeah, but...
it was something that I obviously was interested in doing from a very young age. And yeah, I guess my parents just saw that and they fostered. They were like, okay, let's encourage the kid. Funny thing though, ironically, my dad used to work in advertising. He was a creative director for an advertising agency in South Africa. And he said, if any of our kids ever pick up a pencil and start drawing, break his fingers. Why? Because his idea was like, you're not going to make money being an artist. This is a waste of time. Did
he say that to
you? The irony is that he was actually like succeeding at life doing that. So it's like, Dad, what do you mean? You're doing it. So.
Was it because he didn't want you to go through the pain that he went through?
Maybe, yeah, probably. It's like there's easier ways to do it, guys. Don't do it that way.
I often say, like, my children are never going to become teachers.
Yeah, right.
Excuse me. But they can do whatever the fuck they want.
Whatever they want. That's it. Yeah.
But that's funny.
So funny, yeah. So they didn't break my fingers. So
and it's in your genes then.
Yeah, it is.
Like creativity.
I think so. Yeah. I mean, I do believe as an art teacher, and I'm not just saying this because I'm an art teacher, I do think that at least for drawing and painting, those technical visual art skills, printmaking, I really do wholeheartedly believe anybody can do it. I really do. And anybody can do it and do it well. I do believe that. I don't think it's all just talent. I think, sure, fine. If you have an innate thing and it's in your genes, that's all. You're a bit ahead of the game. It helps. But I don't think that's the only, and I'm not saying that's what you were saying, but yeah, I think anybody can do it because I look at my students and I know this last semester I had one kid that came in and just watching the progression, and all it took was just a little bit of advice here and there, a slight nudge, obviously that connection, and he ran with it, and it was like amazing. It's like, and he even came, he's like, I didn't even know I could do this. I'm like, right? Just need a little bit of...
You're doing it.
Oh, yeah.
Like, just a little nudge.
Yeah, just a nudge. Some direction. Yeah.
And like, just listening to you say that, it just reminds me and reinforces, like, man, our profession is so profound and you are changing lives, bro.
Yeah, sometimes you forget it.
It's very idealistic.
No, but I know what you mean, though.
It's true.
It's true. It's why I think it's why people go into teaching. You're like, I want to...
Until you get bitter.
Yeah. And you hate it and you stop, But I think that's it. You have those little moments, though, those little moments like that, the genuine moments that come through like that. I think that is it because, and it's a big responsibility.
Does it keep you inspired?
When that happens, yeah.
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 It doesn't happen often.
When it does, yeah, definitely.
Yeah. I mean, that's what got me into teaching.
Yeah.
It was like, I I didn't know what the fuck I wanted to do with myself, but I love skateboarding, and I was at a skate park, and I'd always be like teaching kids how to kickflip or dropping on a ramp, and
there you go.
I'd get so psyched when they'd actually do it.
Yeah.
And then I was at the skate park one day. I was like in my early 20s, just doing nothing. And then this kid's like, "Can you teach me how to drop in?" And I watched him just go through like the process and the mental barriers you have to break down to get your body to push down and go down this ramp, and you can injure yourself. And anyway, he did it, and like he was so stoked, but I was as stoked. I was like screaming, going, "Fuck yeah!" And I was like, and he was stoked, and I'd love to see that kid again sometime and go, "Remember that time I told you to drop in?" But then that was when I went like, "Hey, maybe teacher."
Yeah, and I think that's maybe the sign of a good teacher, because it should be that you should have just as much satisfaction, if not more, of the person getting that skill or just getting over that mental barrier, whatever it is.
Until it just gives you the shits.
And and I was actually going to say, even because we were laughing earlier, we're like, "Oh, those rare occurrences." But the other thing I like about the profession is that it constantly, and I don't know if you get this in all jobs, but it's constantly challenges you to reevaluate yourself, what what agenda are you teaching, like what is going on. It forces you to look and step back and say, "Okay, hold on, have I gone too far down this tangent or that tangent?" And it's good, it keeps you growing.
Why the medium for you of drawing specifically? Like, is it just because that felt good and that worked for you, or
probably?
Or is it because it's the most accessible?
Yeah, I think to be honest, probably most accessible is one thing. When you're a little kid, it's just picking up it's to get paint out and this and that. It takes setup. The adults had to set it up for you, so pens and paper, pencils, fine. Also, I think part of it is that everything kind of starts from there. Like if you want to paint, you have to know how to draw first, right? Because you have to know how to sketch ideas out, or you might be a better painter than you are a drawer, or a sketch, but it starts with that. So I think that's part of it. And in my when I was a kid, it was always just hours and hours and hours of drawing with just a regular graphite pencil and regular A4, regular sheet of paper, 8.5 by 11. And much later, I started getting into painting and color. Like it took me forever to actually start exploring color. My dad always used to be like, "You gotta do color. Like, why are you always doing this gray stuff?" Like,
so I had no idea your dad was creative.
Wow.
But he was in advertising. So he was making campaigns and things like that.
But he was kind of what's that saying? A square peg in a round hole kind of thing. He was always more of a concept guy, I think. Like his ideas were always there.
Okay.
But he was kind of put in.
So he was.
Or was it the other way around? It was I can't remember. Sorry, Dad. I don't remember your story.
So he was the managing director though of a firm.
He was an art director. Art director. Yeah.
Sorry. Yep.
And that branch. Yeah. He I don't know. I lost my train of thought there.
Yeah. So he was the one that was like, start using color, correct?
Yeah. He always encouraged me to do that.
Right.
And oh Jesus.
Yeah. He Okay. Yeah.
Sorry.
So anyway.
Yeah, it was much later. I was saying earlier that I only did gray. Like for a long time, it was just pencil. And then he was like, "You got to do color. You got to try different things. Like try painting." It took me a long time. I was afraid of painting because it's a whole different ball game.
Yeah.
But thank God I did though.
You got to develop different, skills. Actually, like the dexterity in your fingers and learning how to hold paintbrushes and stuff like that. But I'm interested because a friend of mine, Athron, who's a musician, he firmly believes, and you said this earlier, that you can teach anyone to sing. Like everyone can sing. It's just it's a matter of like developing the right skills and the muscles and training yourself to do it. You can do it. And some people do have a natural inclination and they've got the X factor, but if you want to do it, you can do it.
Yeah.
And you're sort of saying it's the same with art.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'd love to hear that because forever I thought that I used to put myself in the category of like, I'm not artistic, like I'm a sports guy, which was a real bummer because like I really appreciate art and I actually love music, but I've always like, I'm just no good at those things. But it's funny now in my later years, I'm like, I really want to start exploring that side of my personality and like, how could I express my art in certain ways, I don't think it's through it's going to be through music, but I think through other mediums, like I'm thinking like maybe paint and sculpture, because I like to use my hands, and because I'm fairly high energy, I need something that's going to actually like physically get me moving.
Yeah.
So
you should do it. Have you taken any art classes or anything?
I took one in grade 12 in high school.
Since then, have you
no,
in your adult life?
No, it's because like my girlfriend was in that class and she was awesome. I just wanted to be near her, and then I sucked. Yeah. But anyway, but no, I haven't. I haven't taken any since then, bro.
If it's something you should, if it's something you're interested, even if it's just like, especially here, right? There's like all sorts of workshops and artisans. There's people everywhere here offering.
It's an island of the arts.
It's amazing. Like I was looking at a batik class because I see batik and stuff being around, and it's typical, but I don't know much about it. I've seen a couple tutorials, but I really want to do it because it'd be cool to bring that into the teaching, and then also why not? It's just like another skill. It's hard though, man. Holy moly,
I know.
Really difficult.
And I've seen some of your drawings, and they're quite intricate. So does batik?
Yeah, how does it translate
to you that way? Because you enjoy the intricacies of it.
Yeah, well, I think I like the sort of screw up factor. Like if you screw it up, it's kind of hard to, because the wax, like as soon as you drip the wax in the wrong spot, it hardens immediately, right? So if you want to correct a mistake, it's like you've got to basically start from scratch. So I like that idea. It's the same way that with like in painting, like watercolor, for example. If you do watercolor painting versus acrylics or oils, if you make a mistake with oils or acrylics, you can fix them. Gotcha. But with watercolor, you can't. I hate watercolor though, but batik's interesting. Watercolor, I can't stand.
When I think of watercolor, I think of like paintings at my nan's house.
Yeah. Well, funny you say that. My dad always used to say that the only people who are good at watercolor are dead, because it takes your whole life to learn. Because it's really hard. Watercolor's super difficult. I'm terrible at it.
I like your dad.
Yeah. Hey, Dad.
So I'm going to hang out with him.
Yeah, I wish you were here.
Okay. So watercolors are a pain in the ass.
Yeah, watercolors are a pain in the ass. But for some reason, that sort of, again, that like screw up factor I was saying with batik is for some reason appealing. I don't know. I just like the idea that you have to be quite meticulous and careful with the movement of what you do. And also maybe, an accidental spill happens somewhere and that becomes part of the design. I don't know. Again, I actually haven't done it yet. I've only watched people do it, and from talking to people, it's kind of what I gather. But there's something... Yeah, it's interesting.
That's right.
Yeah.
I love it. So at what stage did you move to Bali? So was it post-university?
Yeah, quite post, yeah.
So you worked in Canada for a while before. Mm-hmm. Okay. What was that like, that period of your life? Yeah, so in uni... I always had a seasonal job, so I used to work at a summer camp. So started out like bottom, camp counselor in the wilderness, like what you'd imagine, right? Lake and trees and all that stuff. But then fell in love with it, and it was like the thing. Like when I was studying, I didn't really have time to get a job in the city, but I would always have that seasonal work, which I fell in love with, and I went through the whole ranks of that of guiding. Eventually, it took me down the path of like wilderness guiding. Like I don't know if you know, but I did 2 50-day canoe trips. I know Greg. We were talking about Greg's from Minnesota and stuff. Yeah, and like real backcountry, kind of following the old fur trade routes and stuff. The backcountry specifically of what, BC? No, I wish. My God. Yeah, anyone who's in Canada is like, yeah, you loser. You were in Ontario. You weren't in BC. BC's where it's at. I get it. The grizzlies in the mountains. That would be amazing. I mean, that's like, that would be... Backcountry of Ontario. Yeah, that would still have its challenges because definitely people don't the bugs alone. People told me, "Oh, you're going to Bali. There's gonna be mosquitoes." Man, there's no mosquitoes here. Bali's got fuck all mosquitoes. Like, you want mosquitoes? You go to northern Canada and Alaska. It's really bad, man. And I've heard in summer it gets super hot, full of bugs, and then winter so cold. Like I was there in winter. Yeah, because I was there for a Christmas once, and there was a day we couldn't go outside because it was like minus 40 degrees Celsius, like with a wind chill factor of minus 50. I'm from Australia, dude. Like East Coast, I'm like, that's bullshit. Bonkers, I'm not going, and like I was scared. Like I'm like, I could die so easily just by walking out to the car. And you could. Yeah, that's the thing. That's why I really admire those, like that backcountry thing. It's like I admire when people can do it all year round, because that was the thing we always used to say that on canoe trips. We'd be like, man, if you just could get food every 2 weeks, because we used to do food drops. It's like if you get food every 2 weeks, you could do this forever. But of course, like, well, no, winter's coming and then you're done. It's game over. You have to know how to survive. Like you can't. It's a whole different ball game. Even just like cooking, something simple like cooking in the winter. Backcountry cooking is weird. Like I haven't actually done it, but
it's like, oil boils at a different temperature and it's just weird shit like that. Of course, water freezes. So like, then what?
Everything freezes. Yeah. So you worked like in that field for a while, like, and did you find it quite exhausting? Like being a camp counselor, working in outdoor education?
Yeah, at times. I mean,
because it's high energy day in, day out.
It is. Yeah, it's definitely tiring, but I think yeah, I mean it is. Yeah, of course you're going to have moments you're going to be a bit burnt out, but I think the sort of love of the outdoors and everybody feeding off of everyone else's ampedness, that I think is what kept you going. And also we were doing, I think the other big thing was that like those canoe trips were really just like something very different. Like if I think back, like you asked me about jobs and like kind of what I was doing. One reason I turned down certain career opportunities at that time in my life was because I fell in love with that whole thing. It's like really unique. Like how many people can say they did a 50-day canoe trip where it's like 50 full days with like your backpack, your tent, you know what I mean? It's like, you don't get that opportunity often. Like I had considered teaching abroad when I was in my early 20s. At one point, 2009, I was going to go to Dubai. I was like the whole plan, but I was waiting on a contract to hear if I was going to go on this super long canoe trip thing. And I was like waiting, and then it's like Christmas, you're like, oh, am I going to get the email? And yeah, you turn down job opportunities and other paths in your life for that thing that you're passionate about. So yeah, you get burnt out doing that job, outdoor ed, but I think
the passion was there.
The passion's there if you're doing something interesting enough. I think that's like with anything though, right?
So, and then did that effectively lead you to wanting to move to Southeast Asia? Because was Bali your first country that you lived in Southeast Asia? Or? Yeah,
I've never been out here before. I was sort of in a time in my life. So I had you mentioned at the beginning of the podcast, I did at one point for about 2 years did sort of a startup with an eco lodge, and the whole idea and the vision of that was to do a sustainable sort of eco lodge and use it as a sort of venue. And the problem we ran into is we had too many sort of options in a sense. We were like, here's this beautiful place. It's boat access only. It's 50 acres in a protected park. It's like pristine, super beautiful. What could we do? Could it be wedding venues or this, that? But we really our mind was always going towards like education, outdoor programs, something maybe like a camp, or a wellness center, like a rehab center. Like that's sort of what the vision was. But then the idea being as self-sustained as possible. Like we're already off grid. We already had solar, already pumping like water out of the lake kind of thing for drinking water. And we had a little garden growing veggies. So, depending on where we could have gone, that was the idea. But then I had to step away from that. But part of that thinking, I think, is probably what led me here, because I had friends that I had spoken to that knew that I had stepped away from that whole project. And they were like, hey, we know you're teaching and you're a teacher and you mentioned going abroad. So through them, I had contacts that worked here. Cool. And they were the ones who nudged me. They're like, you've been doing the sustainable thing. Go to this place, see what it is. Funny thing is, though, I had no idea I was moving here. I purposely didn't do any research. I was just like, okay, what's the name of the school? I just did the interviews and stuff, but I did no research.
Cool.
Until the interview process. They're like, by the way, so this is what Bali's like. I'm like, I don't even want to look at a map. I don't
really?
Yeah. And then it was like, okay, where am I going? Oh, you're going to Indonesia. All right, let's go.
So you were just fully committed.
Totally. Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah.
And now you're here.
Yeah, I love it.
What do you think of the place?
Yeah, it's great. I got no rush to go anywhere anytime soon.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's, I think one thing that stood out, someone said to me, they're like, when you go there, there's this image, of everything's beautiful and the food and the people and everything's amazing and the beaches and all this. And if you're any normal critical thinking human, you realize that's not always the case. And they just said, just be aware of the other side of things. And whenever you move to a new place, you have to adjust to a culture and just a different way of life and a lifestyle. But man, it's been awesome. I'm really happy. Couldn't be happier.
Cool, man. Yeah. I did know about Bali before I came here, because I've always just felt really at home here and excuse me, and love the place. But now I've been here for a bit longer. Actually, I think I've fallen more in love with it. Yeah, now that I understand it a little bit better, but there's still so much I just don't understand about the place. Good and bad.
Yeah, lots of layers.
There's a lot of layers. Yeah. All right, man. So then you've come to Bali, working at an awesome school as an art teacher. What's next for you?
I don't know, man.
Just stay.
Stick around. Yeah. What's next? I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm in a good spot. I can't complain. We'll see. I don't know. I mean, I think one thing you can relate to this too. We don't know with work permits and things. If you know, who knows? You have to kind of. That's the thing about this being a, teaching
Being
abroad is like you never know.
expat.
Yeah, being an expat, you've got to sometimes uproot. So we'll see. Who knows? But I'd like to stick around here, and I think it's important. You got to visit family though. You got to visit.
Yeah,
Garrett does it twice a year. I don't know. He does it twice a year. I can't.
Expensive.
It's expensive. Yeah.
Yeah.
Twice a year. It was funny because I thought I'll be years and years and years and then I'll go see them. And did the first year I moved here, I actually surprised my family the first year I moved here for Christmas. I just flew back. I didn't tell them. And that I hadn't been here long enough to like really gauge like, okay. But I've noticed, I think like a comfortable thing is about a year and a half for me. Like some people I think can go like years without seeing their family and stuff.
Yeah.
I'll admit I'm terrible at staying in touch with them. Like I'll occasionally text whatever. I'm pretty bad with that. But I'm realizing
I've always
a
been bad at
year is a good limit. See them once a year.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the challenges of being an expat is, and if I know for me, one thought that's in my mind regularly is that like my parents are older now. My mum's older, and every year that goes by, it's
yeah, man.
she's just like it's one less year, being close to her, and that's a big one. And I know we all feel it, but I'm sort of I'm conscious of that. But
Yeah.
but the same token, she's so encouraging of like you got to live your own life, and it's your journey, and when it's time to move, it's time to move, and when it's not, it's not.
Yeah, I'm finding that balance. When my family left South Africa, my grandfather said to my dad, he was like, "Some people grow wings, some people grow roots."
Okay.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
so
right.
that was the whole thing.
That's a good saying.
Yeah, but I think it's tough when you're for the people who've grown roots. For those that they love that grow wings, it's tough to, like you said, they've got to live their life,
Yeah.
But family's important. So like you want.
Do you think you've grown roots in Bali?
Maybe a couple little shoots here and there. I don't know. So certain things. Yeah.
I mean, you've got a solid crew of friends.
Yeah, and like good, luckily, like pretty easy transition in here. I think for me, maybe it's just still too early to say, but definitely feeling very comfortable. Like the thought of leaving hasn't crossed my mind yet, so it's good.
Well, brother, it's been epic.
All right.
It's been like probably we had the little toilet break. It's probably been like an hour and a bit.
Cool, man.
Is there any like any parting words like you want to just like? Some people grow roots.
Some people grow roots, team, and some people grow wings. There you go. Those are my parting words.
No, we're not finished. No, that's all good, bro.
Yeah, I don't know. No, I just parting words. I don't know, man. That's it. I don't have anything for the world.
Thanks.
You guys got to figure it out. Everybody's just got to figure things out.
Dude.
Figure it
High
out.
five, brother. All right.
Cheers, man.
Let's go and have a swim in the pool.
Yes.
Ew.